going to be using some scrapbook paper along with some dollar store finds to make some quick and easy Easter decorations. Hey guys, it's Beth. Welcome. I have some pieces that I had picked up from Dollar Tree, and one I even got on clearance for 50 cents, and so that's impressive. I think it was because it didn't have a hanger or something on it, which is fine because so I'm going to use this along with this wood plaque bunny, which I believe came from Dollar General, $2. I'm going to use those two together to create a sign, an Easter sign for myself. And then I also found these at Dollar Tree recently, and they're really rough. I'm not sure they were worth the $1.25 that I paid for them, but they're pretty rough. So I'm going to see if I can't clean those up, or worst case, I'm just going to use the back side here. And I'm going to just decorate those up for some tiered tray decor for myself. I have a variety of scrapbook papers here. I think it's going to take 2 pieces to cover the egg because it's a little bit longer than 12 inches. And then I have some black and white plaid for my bunny. And then these were some scraps that I had that I am going to use on the bunny and the egg. And then I also recently had cut this little bunny die cut, and I thought it might look cute on the egg. So we'll see if I end up using that or not. And then I also have some of the large pom-poms that I recently found at Dollar Tree that I am going to try to use for a tail for my bunny. We'll see how that looks. So anyway, this is what I have, and I thought I would take you guys along with me as I put them together. I will try and point out products that I've used along the way, and we'll do a voiceover for the steps for you. So the first step is to get all of these labels and tags off, since I'm going to be using the back sides of those wooden, the bunny and the egg. I tried to sand down the sides, and then it kind of started to change the shape of the ears, and as much as I liked that routed edge look on the front, it wasn't going to work. So the tag came off the bunny fairly easy. I just used a sanding block to get the last residue off. The Dollar Tree tags did not come off as easy, so this is sped up a lot because it took me a long time to scrape it off, and then I did sand any of that last residue off with a sanding block. So now the fun part starts, I guess. Since these are going on my tiered tray, but my tray sits, my normal tray that I'm going to include them in sits on my kitchen island, so you can see it, from both sides. So I'm going to paint the edges and the backs of the bunny and the egg, that small bunny and egg, with just some white acrylic paint. It's Apple Barrel. I have a large jar of it just because I use it a lot for different things. So trying to really work it into those rough edges there. It's just a horribly rough cut. So like I said, I tried to sand it down, but it was starting to change the shape of the ear, and I didn't want that. It was going to look weird on the front anyway. So I'm just going to apply one coat to the back. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want it to look finished. I'm just one of those OCD people that even if it's for me, like, I need the back to be finished, to look finished anyway. So moving on to the egg, again, trying to work that paint into those rough edges. You can use any paint you have. Doesn't have to be acrylic. It can be chalk paint. It can be leftover wall paint, whatever. And if it doesn't bother you, then you don't have to do back sides. On this bunny, the back is going to go up against my larger egg sign. So all I'm going to do on this one is just do the edges. Mainly, I would have done it anyway, but especially now because I also use that bunny to trace out some shapes on fabrics because I'm going to be doing some stuffed bunnies as well. And so now you can kind of see my permanent marker line there. So I'm also for sure wanting to cover that up. So again, just one coat on the edges just so it looks finished and you don't see those rough wood edges. And then I'm also going to do the edges of my egg sign again, just so it looks clean around the edge and kind of matches with the white paper that's going to be going on the front. And this sign, it's more of like a particle board, you know, the Dollar Tree signs. And so that it kind of soaks up the paint pretty quick. And I'm not going to do the back side of that egg just yet. I will finish that off in a different way later since it does have glitter on it. So now I'm just taking my scrapbook paper, tracing out my bunny shape, and me being the paper saver that I am and the fact that I love plaid, I'm just trimming off the extra there just so I can save it and use it for something else. And now I'm just going to come in and use my small detail scissors to trim around the shape of that bunny. And I'm going like right on the like my pencil line. I would much rather have a little bit extra paper than not enough, so that once I get it on my bunny, you know, I can handle, it's easier to fix overhang than it is to fix gaps, I guess, for me. And the trick on cutting shapes like this is just to make sure you're turning your paper and not your scissors. It just gives you cleaner cut lines when you're doing rounded pieces. So I have a piece of wax paper, and then I'm using some Mod Podge matte finish, and I use it a lot. So I have a big tub and I pour it into that little blue dish over onto the right. I'm just using a foam brush and giving a good coat to the wooden bunny piece. I want to make sure it stays moist while I also apply a thin coat to the back of my paper bunny. And then now I'm just going to put that on, but not press down until I get it slid into place where it's going to cover all the edges. And then I have a Mod Podge squeegee. You can use any squeegee that you might have for like Cricut or Silhouette projects, or you could probably even use like a scraper from your Pampered Chef dishes, like the stoneware dishes. If you're going to use a credit card, you can do that too, but just be really gentle with it. My big thing to avoid the bubbles is just to make sure you're smoothing it out really well, that you're burnishing it down onto your surface really well. And then here I'm just going around the edges because, like I said, I would rather have overhang. And so I'm just kind of pressing those up against the edges of that wood shape as well. And so sometimes I'm, getting it down with my little squeegee, and then I go back and smooth it out with my fingers. So here I'm showing you that just a little bit of an overhang. And now that I have it on, I'm going to seal it with another coat of Mod Podge. So the first coat that went on the bunny in the back of the paper act as your glue, and then this is what seals it and helps it stay down and protects it. So now the fun part of getting to try and piece together my shiplap paper onto my egg. Like I said, it was about 13 inches. I knew I was going to need just a little bit of that second sheet of the shiplap, and so I'm trying to line it up, figure out how much I need, and I tried to trim it so that there's going to be a brown edge at the top of the strip that I just cut, so it kind of blends together a little more seamlessly. And now I'm just trying to figure out how I can kind of piece it together to trace my shape. So I finally decide on just tape. I'm going to tape the edges so it stays together long enough that I can at least get my shape traced. And then once I cut it, go to cut it out, it's fine. So I'm going to place my egg down on my new patched together paper, and then we'll start cutting it out. And I started out with my little precision scissors and then realized why, because this is a huge shape. So you're going to see me transition to bigger scissors that go much quicker because there's not a whole lot of detail, so I don't really need the precision. So this is going much quicker with the bigger scissors, and I'm just going to finish cutting this out, again, cutting it right along my pencil line. And then I'm going to come in and cut out that bottom piece as well. And then I'm going to work on piecing it together onto the egg. So you could paint the back, you could paint this part of the egg instead of using paper. I have a lot of paper. I love paper, and I like the detail that the paper gives. I can, you know, get that shiplap look with my paper in a much cleaner way than I can create that myself. So it's just easier for me to use the paper I have. So again, I applied a very liberal amount to the egg sign because it is like that pressed cardboard. It soaks it in a lot. And then I added some to the back of my paper, and now smoothing it out. Another tip is to smooth from the center out, because then that way you're pushing the bubbles out instead of just moving them around like within your paper. So again, I get a little OCD on trying to make sure it's super smooth and getting all of the bubbles and the wrinkles out. So luckily this is sped up because this does take me a lot longer than it really probably needs to. But so once I get my top surface all smoothed out to my liking, I'm going to come again along the edges just to curve that paper around the edge to get that excess paper down. And then I get to add my second strip. So here it had dried on the sides already, and so I just added a little bit more Mod Podge to the sign and to the paper to make sure that those edges are going to stick down. So I'm going to add that last little strip here and add some more to the sign as well as to the back of my paper, and then line that up. And it like I said, because I cut some of the like brown line where the shiplap pieces meet, I feel like it goes together pretty seamlessly and you can't tell that it was pieced. So just putting the edges down there, you can see how clean that looks, making sure it's all smooth. And then I'm going to do a coat of Mod Podge on my egg as well, now that it's all together, to seal it all in. And because it is a big thin piece, it's just kind of awkward to hold. So now I'm going to come to the Dollar Tree wood shapes. I have some scrap pieces that I pulled out of my stash. I'm going to do the floral for that bunny. And then just tracing it out again with my pencil, trying to go as close to the edge as I can. And then I'm going to trace out the egg as well. And then now to cut those out. So now I'm just finishing up the egg, very simple cuts. And on these, I went inside the lines a little bit just because of the way my pencil was pushed out from the shape a little bit more on these since they were wider. So anyway, adding Mod Podge to the back of my wood bunny or the top of my wood bunny, and then the back of my paper bunny. Smooth those down. These go a lot quicker just because they are so much smaller. Less surface area to work with. Same process. And if you see me wiping off onto the palm of my hand, that's when, if I push out globs of glue of the Mod Podge, when I'm pushing out from the center to the edge, I tend to just wipe that off on my palm. So just a habit I've picked up. So smoothing down all of the edges to make sure the paper goes over the edge for a cleaner look. And then going to add the seal coat on the top of my bunny. And then we move on to the egg, and I am going to add that yellow bunny. I think I liked the pop of color, and then it kind of ties in with the bunny. Like, they're similar shapes, my wood bunny that I just did, and then that paper bunny that I had die cut. So, And all of these products that I'm using will be linked down below so that you can find them. I'll try and see if I can't link to the Dollar Tree website for the items that I've used. Even if they don't have them in stores, sometimes they tend to carry them on the website. You just have to buy them in larger quantities. So to put the bunny on, I added just a little bit of Mod Podge in the center of the egg and then a little bit on the back of my yellow bunny. And now I'm just going to go smooth that down. Just making sure it's on there really well. And now that both of my paper layers are on, I'm going to add my seal coat. So then you're going to let those dry, and then you're going to come back in and add a second seal coat with the Mod Podge. And again, this just seals it in really well and helps protect, you know, the surfaces, especially the paper. And then we'll finish off my egg here. And then I do one additional step that's, you don't have to do it, but I would especially recommend it if you're putting it outside, to use some polyacrylic matte clear. And this just gives it extra protection. And I have found sometimes that if I just leave the Mod Podge seal coat, it can be a little tacky or sticky. And so because I sell a lot of my products, even on the ones that I tend to keep for myself, I go ahead and do the polyacrylic coat, which again, it's just an extra seal, extra protection, but it also helps get rid of some of that tackiness that might be there from the Mod Podge, which is also a glue and sealer. And I do, if you're going to put this outside, like a sign on your door, your front door, even on a covered porch, I would definitely recommend like a polyacrylic seal coat. So here for the back of the egg sign, since it did have glitter on it, I thought about painting it, but again, I didn't want to have to mess with the glitter. So I'm just taking a scrap of craft wrapping paper that I had, traced out my basic shape, and I'm not really worried about like how close I get on this one because I'm going to come in and trim off any excess. But I really just want to cover up the back, like I said, give it a more finished look, even though no one's going to see it but me. But then I also wanted to cover up the glitter that's on there, just so that every time I move this or touch it or store it, like I noticed that there was glitter falling off of it. So I don't want to have to worry about that going forward. So I'm just finishing up trimming that basic egg shape, and I'm not going to use Mod Podge on this either. I'm just going to make it quicker with some hot glue. So I'm just showing you the glitter on there, and I don't care if you can see kind of like the bubble from the hot glue. Again, it's the back side. I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about it just looking finished and keeping the glitter contained. So I'm just working kind of in small areas here because I don't want my glue to cool before I can get my paper down. And then once I get it down, smooth it out as best I can, and then I have just a little bit of excess overhang that I'm going to trim off. And then the back side is done. So now I get to add my bunny to the front of my sign, and again, I'm just going to use some hot glue. My bunny is kind of large, so I'm trying to work quickly to make sure I get the glue on the bunny and the bunny down before that glue would cool so that it will stick really well. I'm just trying to pressing it down, making sure that it's going to adhere. And I'm going to use one of those big pom-poms from the Dollar Tree as my tail. So I'm just going to add a circle of glue right there towards the bottom of the bunny and then press on my pom-pom. And then now that the pom-pom is set, I'm going to add a hanger. I didn't want to add it to the back. I wanted it to kind of lay flat against the wall. So I'm just adding a little bit of hot glue to the side of the top of the egg and just using some kind of like medium width jute twine. It was a scrap I had, so I figured it would be good to use it up. So again, just trying to add it right there to the edge and pressing it down. And I do come back in and seal it up a little bit more with some more hot glue later on, kind of a layer on top of the jute as well. So now I can finish off this little bunny. I wanted to give her a bow, and so I went into my bow stash, like my pre-made bow stash, and there was a paper bow that looked like it might work. And I was looking at my bigger bows to see if anything else would work. Couldn't find anything. And I had thought about adding a bow to the bunny that was on that little egg as well, but it didn't look right. So I decided against it and thought I'll just leave that bunny as is. I kind of auditioned several bows there. Didn't like any of them. So we're just going to add that paper bow onto that pink bunny with some more hot glue. Pressing it down really well and then kind of fluffing up the bow. And there she is. So here are all of my finished projects. I hope you enjoyed this and got some ideas on how you can use just scrapbook paper you might have on hand and some inexpensive items to create some decorations for your home. I thank you guys so very much for your time today, and I hope you all have a very crafty day.